Pilot Say What?
What?
Exactly. Welcome to another episode of Pilots Say What, where we hear what pilots have to say. So today we have Evan Chapman joining us. I appreciate you, by the way, for coming through sort of last minute. But what I'm excited about is that it's been a while since we've had a student on the podcast, and I think there's a few more things I'd like to highlight. Not to mention, you're in an interesting part of your journey that I also want to know more about. Anyhow, I'll let you introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm Evan Chapman, student here at Thrust Flight.
Mhm.
Just finished my CFII, or
Mhm.
my instrument instructor certificate, last Saturday. And so I'm working on multi-engine right now, and
Yeah.
I've got my interview March 4th. So I'm preparing for both of those things, and it's really exciting.
Yeah.
Seeing the light at the end of the tunnel is kind of daunting, and just reaching that next phase of the CFI, airline pilot journey, right?
Yeah.
Build those hours and all that. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I think that's an interesting part of the journey to be in. I think I've mostly had new CFIs or students that aren't that close yet. So I want to ask you a little bit more about the CFII rating and
mm,
things like that, so that maybe I can get a little more insight. But I want to kind of go back a little bit. Uh, you you're a student at Thrustlight. You started with your private, right?
that's correct.
Um,
Zero
s-
time.
Zero time, right? That's why we say that. Before that, what was your interest in aviation? I mean, where did that come
Yeah,
from?
yeah, that's a really good
Yeah.
question. So was really interested in STEM and engineering.
Mm.
I was in band all 4 years in high school, and so I went and auditioned at all the local colleges and colleges abroad, tried to get scholarships and things. And so I ended up pursuing a degree in engineering. And so I got my degree in electronics engineering from Northwestern State.
Mhm.
If any of you are familiar with them, go Demons. It's a weird,
It's a weird mascot.
weird mascot a
But it's
little
cool
bit,
though.
but it's all good. Forkum Demons, yeah. So after that, I was enrolled actually at UNT. I was going to get my master's in mechanical engineering, and I had an internship at Raytheon, um, and doing military contracts and things like that, or at least participating. The idea of that sounds really cool, but the day to day is like really like boring.
Yeah.
Saying that out loud is kind of, I don't know if that's vain or what, but
No, I mean, I get it.
um,
I mean, it's funny. It's one thing to be attracted to something and how it works and be intrigued by it, but like you said, day to
yeah,
day,
yeah, the day to
it gets
day was
broken
kind of
down into
boring.
pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't see myself being there for the next 50 years.
Mhm.
And so I don't know exactly, because I know I was always attracted to aviation. I think it really stemmed when I was in high school. I had
Mm.
a science elective. I had to take some science electives, so I chose astronomy.
Mhm.
And I had a really great teacher. And from that, I think it was that my junior year in high school, my parents bought me a telescope.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, to this day, that telescope is still in my trunk. I can go get it for you right now. And so I fell in love with the, astronomy and all that, and that kind of got me into the door, I guess, with aviation. And I wanted to be an astronaut. And it wasn't until I, got into college I realized that that's kind of, uh, a little bit more of a
An
daunting
undertaking.
task.
Yeah.
I'm like, so that maybe let's drop it down a little bit more realistic, a little
Uh-huh.
bit. So
It's funny you say that
yeah.
because a lot of people struggle with the idea of like wrapping their head around becoming even an airline pilot or a general aviation pilot. But I mean, it was probably a little easier, like you said, than to wrap your head around than being an astronaut. So it puts things into
Not to say
perspective a
that's
little bit.
not possible, but I like to provide for a future family, and
Mhm.
I still would have my bone density after having been in space for 3 months. So anyway, that's a
No, I get you. Maybe
nerdy
there's some
joke, but
listeners out there. Maybe
if
there's
you know,
some.
then you know,
Yeah, if you know,
yeah.
then go ahead and leave a comment in there. I want to understand.
Yeah.
But oh, that being said, so in high school though, you get your interest peaked a little bit, and you start going down,
Yep.
aviation and space, and like
Mm,
what it means to become a pilot.
yeah.
Like when did you like decide though that you
Mm,
like, oh, you know what, that's what I want to do? Was it during college? Was it after college? Like
yeah.
during that job
No, I
or?
tell you exactly when it happened for me was actually I was at the best warrior competition in the Army National Guard.
Okay.
I'm in the National Guard. I've been for about 7 years,
Hmm.
and it was right after college. I graduated, and I was kind of in this interim, with the internship and things. And I actually got selected by my commander to go participate in the best warrior competition. And so I competed against my unit and then also my battalion. And then ultimately I won that, and I was elevated to the state competition. So back in 2021. And so I competed against all the best soldiers in the state of Louisiana back in 2021, and I ended up winning the state and elevated to regionals, where I competed against the best warriors of 7 states, I think Texas, Arkansas, a few others. And I thought I was pretty fit until I met the Rangers. And at that point, I realized that I had a little work to do.
Yeah.
And so, but at that time, we were actually in Austin doing the competition, and they had us do a helicast. So essentially, what we do is we were loading with our full gear in a Blackhawk, and it was about a mile or two. I can't remember exactly. And so we had no life raft or anything like that. And essentially, they hover about 20 feet above the ground, or above the water, and we just jump into the water. And I'm glad we did the training beforehand. We had to jump. I wasn't raised on a farm, so I didn't have a lake in my backyard.
Yeah.
I remember one time when we were preparing for that, they were basically jumping off of the pier and into the water.
Yeah.
And I made the mistake of leaving my mouth open, and so I was like, huh. And as soon as I hit the water, I was a mouthful of water, and I started choking immediately. So
wow.
yeah,
I didn't even think about that. That's crazy.
I was just like,
Mouth open.
it was like as soon as we jumped in, I was already like flailing.
Is that a thing that people do though? Like, is that like?
Well,
other
I don't
people
know.
struggle with that?
I guess other people can swim. I've never been a very avid swimmer, so. But in any case, I made it to the actual event, and it was just like I was interested in aviation, and I was kind of in this interim where I don't want to be an engineer anymore. And I saw this helicopter. I'm like, this is really cool. So it kind of got my wheels spinning there. And I think somehow I ended up looking at the Bureau of Labor Statistics and about airline pilots and potential earnings, and I think that was really what put the put me over the top. It was like, as an engineer I can make this much, but as a potential airline pilot I can make a lot more, and triple, maybe even. It's not just the money that gets me into aviation. I know a lot of the old guys don't really. It's not just about the money, and it really is that way.
And you probably won't make it. Well, here's the thing: you can sign up for just the money, but from what I've seen, people won't last probably for just the money, because there's not that it's that far away. It's just like there's a lot. Like you said earlier, you're in your CFII. It's like one fire hose after another when you're in a fast track program, right? Like I know I'm just saying that, but I'm sure it's like that. But anyways, to your point, you're saying that. Like you saw that and you're like, well, maybe that's a good decision.
Yeah, definitely. And I didn't know, you don't know what you don't know, right? And so I was like, I went on a discovery flight and here at Thrust Flight, and I never looked back. But I've learned through my training, as you learn what the questions you need to ask. Like, you don't know what you don't know, but you learn what questions to ask, and as you go through your training, and you really have to have the initiative. I know last week Mr. Stromer was talking about having that drive, and it really is. You got to have a love for aviation and that drive to read the book. Yeah. Sometimes like that. Sometimes it's easy. It just comes to you. But thankfully, I love it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome actually to hear. And I want to just ask one question around there before we move on to some of where you're at in your journey. But you sound like someone who does a little bit of research. And
try to stay connected.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And so I guess one thing I wanted to ask is that I think the viewers will hear me ask this, and maybe this sounds like an alley-oop, but I'm genuinely curious that about the fact that you did look into maybe the potential earnings, and then I'm assuming you did more research than just that. So was there any fear about the cost of flight training?
Sure. It is. It's definitely a concern, and it still is. As far as, oh man, I've got that huge loan payment that I've got to start paying back. And I appreciate.
There's a lot of options out there.
There
to be
is.
fair, you don't have to go to a fast track program. I do think there's a lot of, well, probably the best way to do it if you want to get to the airlines.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I just want to put that out there. Like you're choosing to do this to go to the airlines, and I'm wondering, like, how did you overcome that?
So there's some pros and cons for each one, right? I think those that have the income, that have the savings, that could do, that could hire their own CFI, maybe they own their own plane. That's a lot of, things lining up that works out for you. But like for me, for instance, I don't have 50 grand just lying around.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I couldn't buy a plane. So really, this was my only option. And it's a good option too. And not only that, but with the Part 61 alternative,
Mhm.
you don't have as many resources. With CFIs, here at Thrust Flight, we've got dozens of CFIs and
Yeah.
books, and the Part 141 program is a little bit more stringent. I know
Mhm.
there's a running gag about the Part 61 guys, like, oh yeah, we'll go fly, and the
Yeah.
Part 141 guys, will they're like, oh no, it's crosswind of 2 knots, we're not
Yeah.
going to fly. But it's a kind of a joke. It's kind of
Like it's
because it's a
bureaucratic, like it's too
yeah, yeah,
systematic to get in the
right.
air or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, I get the joke.
But
That's funny.
it's definitely, as far as ground knowledge, I think it's helped me more than anything, having that kind of structure.
Mhm.
And a lot of times with Part 61 programs, you don't have that structure. Your CFI will probably give you an app, and you'll go do your own, and he'll supplement. But here, we get to ask questions like my study partners. That's a big thing, is the culture here that Thrust
There's a lot
Flight
to
is.
get out of that.
Yeah, and you don't always get that,
Mhm.
And so, we're talking about money, but I guess that's the pros and cons here.
Yeah,
I
to your
guess with the
point.
Part 141, it does cost a little bit more, to have all of the extra. That's really, I think,
Well, to your point, it's
yeah.
like to some people, and maybe there's always another option. Technically, right? You can work your butt off and
Mhm.
save up money. Like anyone technically can do that. But to your point, it gives you another in.
Mm.
Um, it is an option for you to get where you want to go, and so I think that's cool that you look at it that way. So you decide you want to go to school. You've signed up here with Thrustlight.
Yeah.
That's who you've landed with. No pun intended. Um,
Nice soft landing.
yeah, right. And so before we get to where that's funny. Before you get to where you're at in your journey, like what is something that was kind of difficult about uh beginning flight training and getting into it that maybe you didn't expect?
Yeah,
Um,
there's definitely a few things. Honestly, I think the longest rating I went through was my private.
yeah.
I think it was the biggest thing was just the not knowing anything about aviation,
Mhm.
and so it's kind of just like it's all new information,
Yeah.
and so I was just like, wow, there's okay, there. I mean, sure, there's a plane, but wow,
Yeah.
like goodness.
Yeah.
So I think it was just getting mentally past that hump of like, yes, I can do this.
Yeah.
And not like, I don't know, like this is,
Was there a point at which it
yeah,
felt like, yes, I can do this? Because you're saying you get in, and you're like,
yeah,
you're actually like, wait, what
yeah.
did I sign up for? Am I
Mhm.
okay? Can I do this? And then there's a moment you're like, I can. When do you gain confidence? Like, what happened?
Yeah, I think it was the time that I nailed my short field landing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because you get it's just the small things, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of compiles. But well, I think it's like making your bed in the morning. If you can do the small things right and just keep layering those things on, you'll build confidence, and those endorphin shots will shoot in your mind, and you'll start building some self-confidence. And I think those are important things to do, is like recognizing the small tasks that you've completed in your pilot training, like just maybe I did this checklist right,
Mhm.
start there, or I was able to remember this flow that I worked on all night last night,
Mhm.
just taking it like baby steps,
Mhm.
like one thing at a time. And that really worked for me. It's like in CFI training, we talk about this defense mechanism called fantasy.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of times in pilot training, especially in private pilot, for me, it was like, man, I want to be an airline pilot. And I can't even fly this prop plane. I'm just
Yeah.
like, there's so much like systems, and there's like, electrical
Rules and
systems and
weather.
rules. Like I'm supposed to be a meteorologist, a lawyer,
Yeah.
a pilot, and all these things. But taking it baby steps, and not necessarily thinking way off in the future, but like, okay, I'm gonna get there, but
Mhm.
today I'm going to focus on this.
Yeah, it's being present in the moment, if anything.
Present in the moment. It's
Um,
huge.
well, now you're in what was it, CFII training, right?
Multi training.
Multi train. Oh,
Right.
yes, you just went past the
Mm.
CFII.
Yes, sir.
So, can you tell me a little bit about what it's like to have gone through your CFI and CFII? I know
Right.
we have, you know, we do it a certain way here, and I know they might do it different ways other places, but I'm curious about the experience of
Mm.
that.
Oh wow, it's really exciting.
Yeah.
Moving to the right seat is definitely an exciting challenge, and you're not able to. I mean, you are able to, because your instructor's in the left seat now, so you're still able to ask questions and things like that. But it's that whole mental like process of like, wow, I'm supposed to know everything and be able to teach it all and basically know everything, and so it can be
Yeah.
a little daunting. But I think CFI, the initial CFI certificate is definitely a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of studying. It really makes you, at least it made me, really want to know it, because I'm like, I'm going to be expected to teach this, so
Mm-hmm.
I
There's an
need to.
expectation, like
Right,
an immediate expectation.
right, and
Yeah.
so I need to go and work on those weaknesses I might have, and I think for me it might be different for others, but it really made me want to read the book.
Mhm.
Like why things work the way they work, or why is it this way, or
You want to have
just
that understanding because you don't want to
exactly.
get stumped by a question.
Mhm.
I mean,
I'm
it'll
supposed to
happen.
teach it, so they say if you can teach it, then you know it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that was the biggest thing. Making presentations, that was
Mm,
pretty big. At least practically, what they can work on is, um, you know, you can go through the ACS and what you're gonna have to present on, and so maybe getting ahead of the game is just going and making presentations, doing the research, and getting an outline plan of what a lesson would entail about
mm.
how to do a short field landing, or um, the electrical system, or anything that might be in the ACS.
You guys go through so many mental like challenges and changes. Like you have to switch and really grow your mindset so quickly. I'm just thinking about going from someone who doesn't know anything to accepting a role like that. Um, and I've seen students now in my last year here become CFIs, and I've seen the CFI that they've become, and I'm like, it's so impressive. That's all. The
I
question,
resonate with that
yeah,
100%.
how
Sorry, go
so?
ahead. Like for me, I was always attracted to the blue collar side of things,
Hmm.
but I got my degree because I wanted to help provide for a future family, and I think I could have been more well off if I did that, and so I
Hmm.
did. Um, but I've always been drawn to the skill oriented
Mm,
tasks, and so I feel like this is like a great in between, because it's definitely a skill, but
hmm.
there's a lot of like technical knowledge.
That's awesome,
Uh,
and I like that kind of thing too. Without going too much about me, like the video stuff, I love this because it's very much skill oriented as it is technical. And that's actually something I wanted to ask you about is moving to the right seat. There's some technical challenges there, right? And that's something I don't think we've gotten to talk about yet. So I want to maybe highlight that before we
mhm.
talk about multi a little. Um, yeah, what's the technical and skill difficulty in changing from left to right seat?
Well, there's a little bit more room, maybe about an inch more
Yeah.
in the right seat in the Piper Archer, for those of you that fly the Archer.
Uh-huh.
I don't know about the Cessna. I haven't flown the Cessna,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
technically, like, honestly, it's the same airplane.
Mm,
The only thing that's different for me, at least, is that I really decided that I have to know what this airplane is, because
mm,
ultimately, if I am an instructor,
mm,
then it's I bear the responsibility
mm.
for our safety, our overall safety, which is
Yeah.
basically the role of a CFI,
Yeah.
is to ensure aviation safety.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
you know,
That's what I want people to know is if you don't know anything about flying in general aviation or a plane this size or anything like that, there's two sets of controls, and there's a professional in there at all times.
right,
So
right.
so they're going to be looking out for you, and they can help you out. I always found it very interesting. I didn't know when I actually sort of landed a plane once.
Ah,
I pretty much did a discovery flight with Keelan over in Denison at our
oh, he's
Denison
great.
location. Yeah, he was great, but he had me, come on in and handle the yoke and even the little rudder action. I was like, that was wild. But it's like a three-dimensional access and it's really cool. But he's able to obviously handle the plane. So even if you're on like your first flight ever, if you haven't yet and you're curious about aviation, maybe that's something you should do, and you'll see that what it feels like. If it's something you really want to do, you might get the spark, and also you'll see that someone's there to help you out.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's just really interesting to know there's two sets of controls. So,
I
um,
remember, actually, you sparked a memory. I
uh,
remember when I was a student pilot, first working on my private
uh,
pilot certificate. One of my first times in the plane, we all drive cars, right?
right.
And so yoke, right? It goes left and right. And I remember it just being so like crazy to think about. Like there's the X,
Yes.
the Y, and now there's a Z axis. I can go up and down, and
Yeah.
just learning how to.
And there's like several. There's. I mean, two. You're controlling two things with a yoke, right?
Right.
Two separate types of controls. But you have like two separate. Like you have like a set of controls down at your feet, but they're like inversely related. it just gets really it gets a little technical, but it's kind of interesting. I want to do it again. So
Yeah, definitely should.
I guess that's how people get hooked, right? I just said it out
Yeah, you're
loud.
hooked.
I didn't
It's over
know.
with.
I've been curious about it. It's kind of like a video game when you're like, oh, I want to get it right, so you do it again. It kind of feels like that.
This is
But
where you plug in your flight sim link for the discount.
oh, see,
Yeah.
look, I wish I had a flight sim link for a discount. Yeah. Anyhow, well, lastly, we've covered a lot of good things. I appreciate you for coming through. By the way,
It's my pleasure.
you're in your multi. How far along in your multi are you, and how's that going?
Right, it's been a couple days.
Yeah.
It's been a couple days, but
Okay.
multi does definitely moves a lot faster. So I'm operating under Part 61 requirements for multi-engine.
Mhm.
I think I have about 13 hours of multi-engine time,
Mhm.
and so we're doing it under Part 141. Part 61 requirements for multi-engine. So
Mhm.
it moves a little bit quicker,
Mhm.
and so I'm working on my ground right now, and it's a new airplane. So starting from the very beginning, we got V speeds,
Mhm.
two engines. So there's
Feels nice, I'm sure.
different controls, and it's
Mhm.
kind of different conceptually.
Mhm.
You've got with one engine, if we have an engine failure, we have a certain flow, and we try to restart it if we can't, and we'll land right. But the expectation is that with a multi-engine, it's just risk. We're mitigating risk, right?
Mhm.
And so the um,
I thought it
cha-
was more for speed and power, but it's a big part of it is mitigating risk, right?
no, so you would think, and it does. It gets more performance and it's faster, but ultimately the uh, multi-engine is just to mitigating risk of an engine failure.
Mm.
That's really all it is, and that's how we train.
Mhm.
Multi-engine is for a lot of our training is operating with one engine,
Mhm.
but we're assuming that we've got one engine. So that's how majority of our training is. It's very, very, very. Did I mention very unlikely that we'll lose both engines? So
Mhm.
that's essentially how we train multi-engine. Yeah,
Okay.
that's really fun.
I did not realize that. That's interesting, and it's really fun. I'm
Yeah.
sure because it's a cool plane. We got to take a trip in it, so
Mhm.
it's pretty fun. Before working here, I never even was in a plane smaller than a airline jet. So it was very interesting and very interesting. I wanted to do that. You've qualified to become a CFI, like work as
Right.
a CFI earlier than now because you've
Right.
been qualified for a while.
Mm.
And that's something you're gonna do. Are you gonna do that with thrust flight?
Oh yes, I hope so.
Yeah.
I submitted my application a few days ago, and I've got my interview on March 4th. So
Oh,
we'll see how that goes.
yeah. Good luck, man, on becoming
Thank you.
a CFI. I mean, the way you talk, it sounds like someone would be lucky to have you as a CFI.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna do my best.
did you say you're interviewing for the Army?
Yeah, so I've also got an Army National Guard interview. So I've been in the National Guard for 7 years, but I'm trying to transfer to the Texas Army National Guard to
Mhm.
fly Chinooks or CH-47s, for
Mm,
you guys that know, um, out of Grand Prairie.
yeah.
And so it's also part time.
Mhm.
And so if I do get selected, I think I'll go for a military flight school
Mm,
around September, which is about 9 months from now.
mhm.
And so I'll hope to be hired here at Thrust Flight, and or if I don't, that's fine. I'll have to work as a flight instructor up until I go to Army flight school, and
Mhm.
then I'll learn how to fly the Chinook essentially, and
Yeah.
and do that part time, which will reduce my required ATP minimums by half.
Oh wow, I
And
did not
so
know that. But I know that there's a lot of training that goes into the military. So,
yeah,
well, hey man, it sounds like you got a lot of things ahead of you.
it's fun,
Yeah, you got a couple routes to go, and that's just one more note about how many different things you can do when you get
right?
through flying.
Yeah, you can do both. You can fly
Yeah,
for the airlines and fly for the military
I
at
mean,
the same time.
I don't know if it's proper to say this. We can cut this out if you'd like, but people say it's the best part-time job you can get working in the airlines.
100%.
Yeah, I think that's a notion that you'll find if you look into it enough, anyway. So Evan, I appreciate you coming through and joining us on this episode of Pilot Say What. I mean,
Where are we here?
yeah,
What pilots
exactly. No, you had it. You want to do it? Do it one time.
Pilots say what?
What? So weird to be on this side. He was. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on
Sorry.
this side.
Yeah.
No, it was fun. That was fun. I thought it would be kind of hard to do, anyways. Um, if you guys have watched this far into the episode, you're still listening. I'm assuming you've enjoyed it. Just know that roughly around 4 to 5% of our listeners who listen regularly have subscribed to us. I would like for you guys, if you listen to any more than just one episode, or even if you listen to this full episode, hitting that subscribe button gets us to more people who could maybe benefit from some of the things we had to say. If you have any questions for any of us, for Evan, feel free to leave them in the comments below. We tend to get a good discussion going down there. And of course, that like button is helpful as well. We'll see you guys on the next episode of Pilots Say What, where we hear what pilots have to say.